like you told me a long time ago, you said, if you want to have a good career, have a good day today, have a good day tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. And eventually, a day will turn into a week, turn into a month, turn into a quarter, turn into a year, turn into a decade, and turn into decades and an amazing career.
Well, one of the things, too, is you have to control what you can control, and don't worry about the things you cannot control.
Yeah.
And the one thing we can control, and there's several things we can control, but one thing we can control our work ethic.
No doubt.
And that's to where, and I remember telling you that early on.
Yep.
Don't ever let anyone out. Don't ever, ever, ever let anyone outwork you.
I literally just wrote that right here because you told me that since I was a child. Never let anyone out hustle you. What is up? Welcome back to the CA Power Player Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Askins, and happy Father's Day. It is approaching here in a few days for all of our fathers out there. Hope you're having an amazing weekend and Father's Day. No matter when you see this, man, having a supportive, mentoring example in your life is one of the, and I think, specifically having an incredible father has meant a ton to me. If you've been fortunate and grateful to have an amazing father in your life, make sure that you tell your father Happy Father's Day. And so we're going to spend some time with my dad today as we prep and hang out for Father's Day. And so please welcome, it's been a minute since he's been on the podcast. Please welcome back my father, Brian Askins.
Hey, thanks very much for having me. It's an honor, and I'm looking forward to this. Very, very, very excited about this.
Yeah, me too. There's so many different angles and directions we could go. For Power Player Podcast, we've talked a lot about your career, selling 465 policies your very first year in insurance, literally cold door knocking, and running a debit route while you were collecting premiums door to door. We've talked about Medicare seminars, right, which you've done. We talked about cross selling. We've talked about referrals, all the things, networking groups, all the things that you're very, very good at, by the way. And you've added that to that list, agency building, right, et cetera. After you've been independent for 11 years, it's grown even more, that list has, which is cool. And there's a lot of angles we could go. One of the first things that I wanted to start with is you helped me my first year in the business. And you know what? You helped me in a lot of ways because I saw the business growing up. You showed me who to chase, when I was new. And then you ran appointments with me, you were willing to support and help because you wanted to see me do well. Now, did you want to do all the work for me? Clearly not. But you would love to see your son do well versus fail, in a very difficult industry. What was that experience like? Do you remember some of that early on?
I do. And you've been in the business I've been in the business your entire life. Yeah. I started in the business 3 months before you were born.
3 months and 8 days, yeah.
Yeah, before you're born. And so one of the things is I never wanted to push any of our children into the business whatsoever. Now we have everybody's in the business. Mm-hmm. And so, but you were the first one in the business, obviously. And it was really special for me from a standpoint of I was just trying to give you the best practices, trying to give you some of the principles I've learned throughout my career. Yeah. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt that you'd be very, very successful. I just saw you were motivated, you were driven, and I know that you were in the top 10% of all the people who's going to get in this business. And just from your motivation, your drive, and just how you weren't going to, you were doing all the right things, and I was just trying to, as you made mistakes along the way, I would just tell you what those mistakes were. And then the greatest thing that you had, one of the greatest things you had, you were coachable. You listened, and there's so many people out there that won't listen. They got it figured out, and but you've always been somebody that would listen and was coachable, and it's just your drive. So and you got in the insurance industry, and you were obviously in sales for a long, long time, and then you just had a bigger vision. That's when you took the turn, and I actually love that you did. Thanks. And so
it's been good. It's been quite a ride. I mean, I don't think either one of us expected our careers to go exactly as it has in any way, but we're incredibly blessed. Our family is, our teams are. You mentioned, also, actually, before I get to a couple questions that I had based on that, you said you could just tell that I was motivated and driven. What did you see that maybe others didn't?
So one of the things I saw is that you were writing down goals early on, and every day, and I remember this, pretty well. Is every day you were monitoring, measuring yourself based on those goals. Did you hit your goals? And I remember you saying even, that I'm not leaving the field until I come home with the sale. And you were driven that way to do that. But there's so many times I spoke at a recent one of your recent 8% road shows.
Yeah, not too long ago in Atlanta.
Yeah, in Atlanta. And one of the things I asked a question at the end, and it was kind of the thing that really changed my career, and I think that you learned this early on, and it changed yours too. And I think it put you on the right platform to begin with,
no doubt.
And so one of the things is that is to figure out what are the revenue generating activities. And back then I didn't call them that, but back then I called it what moved the needle. What actually moved the needle, and in order for you to achieve your goals. So you have your goals set. But what are the things that you have to accomplish daily in order to make sure you reach your goals? And the greatest thing a person can do, and everybody on this podcast, listen to this podcast, if you could do this right here, I'm telling you, it'd make a difference in your career. But again, 99% of the people just don't do it because it's difficult, it's hard. But I'll tell you what it is.
You do a good job of motivating people in that way and challenging people. Like you did that well with me. You'd be like, hey, most people won't do this.
Yeah.
But man, if you do this, right? And I appreciated that.
Yeah, and it is true, but
and it's honest.
It's honest. 99% won't do it, but there's be 1% that do it, but they're going to be in the 1% category too.
True.
And that's to where every single day at the end of the day, write down what you did that day that helped you achieve your goals.
Yes.
And there's just people that they don't want to do that because they're not writing down anything that made them. But they're never going to reach their goals either. And but one of the things that I look at it that way is, and one of the things I saw in you back then, and I still see in you today, is you're honest and truthful with yourself. And if you can't be truthful to yourself and honest with yourself, who else can you be truthful and honest to?
Yeah.
And you've got to be truthful and honest every single day. Are you doing the activities? Are you getting the things done that's going to move the needle for you to hit your goals?
Good.
And that's what people just don't do.
No, you're right.
They're afraid to measure themselves. So
Yep. It's just wild because you're right. Like if you can do that, it's amazing what you can learn about yourself and what's happening in your business. And if you really want to succeed, everybody says, I want to do well, I want to win. You'll call yourself out when like, you know what, I didn't work hard today. And when you get in the habit of working hard, like you told me a long time ago, you said, if you want to have a good career, have a good day today, have a good day tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. And eventually, a day will turn into a week, turn into a month, turn into a quarter, turn into a year, turn into a decade, and turn into decades and an amazing career.
Well, one of the things, too, is you have to control what you can control, and don't worry about the things you cannot control.
Yeah.
And the one thing we can control, and there's several things we can control, but one thing we can control our work ethic.
No doubt.
And that's to where, and I remember telling you that early on.
Yep.
Don't ever let anyone out. Don't ever, ever, ever let anyone outwork you.
I literally just wrote that right here because you told me that since I was a child. Never let anyone out hustle you.
Never let anybody out hustle you, outwork you.
Thousands of times.
And just don't let it ever happen. And always be the hardest working person in the room. And one thing I realized in my life is that I'm very rarely the person in the room with the most talent, but very rarely am I in the room that someone has a better work ethic.
Yeah.
That just doesn't happen and doesn't happen often. And you can make up for a lot of things with work ethic and desire and care and that you really truly, you want it. And it goes back to just writing that down each day. Yeah. What did I move the needle today? Did I do something today that moved that needle?
That's right.
Whether it be production, revenue, whether it be recruiting, whether it be whatever, agent development. Did I move the needle today?
True. And it's one of the fastest ways to increase skill. If you feel like you're not very good at this, work really hard, put in a ton of activity, like you were door knocking like your first sales job was selling furniture door to door with pictures in a box.
It was 3x5 pictures in a box, a card box.
It wasn't even a freaking catalog. It was
a card box.
Pictures.
I carried a card, just an index card box. It was
You
index.
didn't have like a huge assortment like an Ashley, furniture. Like
No.
you had like some pictures, and this is what you can purchase.
Yeah, so we had it categorized, and I had each picture. It was an index card you pulled out, and so it was living room furniture. There was appliances, bedroom furniture. It was categorized based on the category.
That's insane.
And so I would just find out what they needed, and I'd pull those pictures out, and I'd spread them across our table. Hey, which one? And then we'd start the conversation.
That's wild. And did y'all
door to door knocking?
That's crazy. That's insane. Yeah. And then you moved into that in insurance, right? And you will get better. Like you go do that and knock on thousands of doors. I think it's safe, maybe 10,000 doors your first year. If you sell 465 policies, it's a lot. That's a ton of freaking doors. And people would say, well, actually in your case, it was probably more than that because if 10,000 is 200 a week, even if you take 2 weeks off, which you probably didn't on you, that's, you probably did more than 40 a day. So yeah, probably did tens of thousands, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get better.
Yeah. You get better and better. And the thing about it is one thing that I've done, and this is something else I'd encourage people to do, not only write down every day and be honest with you, so how do you move the needle? Mm-hmm. But after every presentation, I don't care if it's a client presentation, I don't care if it's a Medicare presentation, you're doing a Medicare seminar. Yeah. I'll just use Medicare seminar as my example. After I created the Medicare seminar platform and presentation and everything, after I did that, after every seminar, I was making changes. I was changing, and I probably made changes after the first 15 or 20 because after everyone, what went really, really well and what did not go so well. Yeah. And that's a matter of just never being satisfied. And that's you're never satisfied. And, we're probably the hardest on ourselves than anybody could ever be on us.
True. No doubt.
And I know you're a lot harder on yourself than anybody else is, for sure. So
no doubt. How do you instill that in, say you're raising, kids, how do you instill that to where they do accept responsibility? They do let stuff roll off their shoulders easy. They do whatever the literally the last thing you just said, right? Like they're willing to not only put in the work, but like, how do you instill some of those things that you're talking about?
I think there's a lot of things. Number one is that raising children, and again, I'm not saying I'm right in this. This was my belief in raising children. I believe that some parents. Are way too loose, and some parents put their thumbs on the children too hard. And I was always one to where my philosophy was, I'm going to trust you until you give me a reason not to trust you. I'm going to trust you until you give me a reason not to trust you. And because I won't, and one other thing on that too is that I think it's, you got to be positive influences to your children, and every word in the words that you talk to them, they've got to come out of, hopefully in childhood, they're gaining more and more confidence in themselves. And because they're getting, they're getting beat up at school. They're getting beat up with other people as far as, the words that they hear, the language that they hear, and the context they hear it in. Yeah. And so the safest place in a child's life should be their home, and the most positive place should be their home. And so you had a lot of dreams when you were a child. We discussed a lot of different things that you wanted to be and wanted to do, and I don't care what it was. I never pushed y'all to play sports, but when y'all played, I wanted you to give it all. Yeah. And I'd make sure, that you had the best equipment and make sure that you were always on practice on time, and I'd practice with you at home, and, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just, you want to set your children up for as much success as you can. So like, say example, like they're in sports. Well, sports is a lot more fun when you're good at it, when you're winning. Yeah. And you're contributing to the team. And I knew that because I played a lot of sports when I was a kid. And but when you're good at sports, it just improves your overall self-esteem. That's right. And so that's the reason that you and your sisters, we played ball all the time at the house. Because if you were going to play, I wanted you to be the best you could be.
Yeah.
You know, never expected anything more than your best efforts, and I want to put you in a situation where you could win and feel good about yourself. But I think it's just your children have to know that you believe in them, and that's the part that so many parents miss.
Yeah.
You know. And I hope that, you know, like when you came out of childhood, and I guess it'd be a good question, you know, did your mom and I, you know, make you believe that you could accomplish anything?
So, no doubt. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have, if you didn't, I would not have felt like I could make six figures, you know, for those who don't know the story. Like I went to you at when I was brand new in the business, and I just starting.
Yeah. I remember that, because I remember you know, I said, Cody, I said, you know, you need to set a goal to make it six figures. And I remember your eyes was pretty big that day.
Yeah.
You know, like
I'm in college.
How am I going to make six figures?
$12 in the bank.
And I'm like,
you know?
Cody, you know, it's all about a plan. It's all about a system. If we put together this plan, you can legitimately make six figures. And I was pretty confident you would. Now, if you didn't and you came up at 90,000, that's still a win.
For 2021, that's still a win.
That's still a win.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing wrong with that. But I just wanted you in your mind to have the belief that you could do it. And I love that you wrote it down that day, and you signed it, and you brought it to me to have me sign it.
Yeah.
And
kind of crazy.
And I love that, you know. And so that told me that what I need to know that day. So.
Yeah. That shows. For those that are listening, like you're hearing a lot, I hope you're taking a ton of notes, but like what you're really hearing a bunch of is you have to believe in what you are doing, and people will be able to tell how serious, you can tell people how serious people are when you meet with them based on some of the steps and actions they're taking towards whatever they're saying they're going to accomplish, you know, but also we're in an industry where unfortunately there's a lot of lip service without a lot of action.
Well, every word we say, it's impactful to the children that, you know, our children.
Yeah, big time.
It's impactful to the agents that we mentor. It's impactful to our spouses.
Yeah.
And I've made a ton of mistakes. You know, if there's a mistake to be made, I've probably made it. You know, there's many times I had to go back to my wife or 20 of children and apologize because I overreacted, you know, got upset, you know, and but that's one of the things that I think that we as parents, you know, we've got to try to do the right thing, and when we make mistakes, we apologize.
Yes.
And but you know, I think that we've got to understand that, you know, the words that we tell our children, and you know, if we call them names or if we, you know, downgrade them, that's going in their mind.
True.
You know, it affects them. So
true. Yeah. What advice would you give to somebody that's like got a kid coming up that's but they're like, say they're, I don't know, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 25, I don't know, you know, and they're considering getting the business. They're thinking about it. They kind of want them to get in the business. What advice would you give? Cause like you said earlier, I'm in the business. Kaylee's husband, Ty, is in the business. Katie's husband, Matt, is in the business, and Casey's in the business, right? So we literally got, you know, all of our family is in the business.
Yeah, and then, you know, your mom and my wife, you know, is also in the business.
True.
She's our office manager, and so our entire family's in there. So one of the things is that I never pushed any of our children to be in the business. I never pushed you. You know, you and I were, you know, obviously very, very close growing up.
Yep.
As you grew up, and you know, we were best friends and still best friends today.
No doubt. And you helped me. You know, you coached me in sports for years.
Coached you for 13 years in baseball. And
you're my best man at my wedding.
Yeah. And that was probably the biggest honor I've ever had in my life, was being your best man at your wedding. And the day that you asked me to be your best man, it was a special moment in my life. So it's
cool. I love that. And we've always got along really well. There's a respect factor there that, I've also never want to disappoint you too. Like, I think that's a big driver for me, is like, I do not want to disappoint my parents. You know, like that's been a big driver for a lot of decisions that I've made along the way. You know, right or wrong.
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with just the love that we showed you, mm-hmm. and the things that we did for you, and the way we supported you. So and you knew if you did disappoint us or it truly broke our hearts,
True.
and I just tell you now, I couldn't have. I'll tell a quick story, and Roger Staubach. I don't know if you remember this story. I've said it before.
I don't know. But
Roger Staubach, it is Hall of Fame induction. If you ever get a chance to go back and listen to Hall of Fame induction, Roger Staubach said, talking about his dad, and he said, my dad one day said, God only gave me one son, but he gave me a good one.
I remember this.
And he said, that was the greatest words I ever heard my dad say. When he was talking about his dad, and so I only gave me one son, but he gave me a good one.
That's cool. I love that. Yeah, that's a strong words. That's strong words. What is it like? We talked about a ton, and I want to eventually get into building an agency and some principles that you've learned and stuff like that, right? So stay tuned as you're hearing a bunch of different things today, and hopefully this is helping you. Who knows where you're at in your business, where you're at in your life. What's it like having family in business, and how do you navigate that? Because there are challenges every now and then. Like, it is not perfect.
There is.
And most people are like, I will never work with my family ever.
Yeah. And that is true. A lot of people do that. And I think it's such a mistake. And it's just my perspective. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. But kind of going back to the question, I'll kind of answer this one at the same time. So I never pressured any of our children to get into the business. Mm-hmm. So you obviously, you got in the business. You and Ty had started a Slam Dunk Cleaning, which was a commercial cleaning company.
And freshman year of college.
And
office cleaning.
And so you got in the business, and I think real shortly after Ty, or maybe y'all got the same time. It was really close.
He was shortly after me.
Just shortly after.
But very close.
Yeah, very, very close. Within a
few months
or so.
Yeah.
And so you got in the business and started doing very well. Then Ty got in the business. And y'all were roommates in college.
Yep.
And then brother-in-law Matt he had just been accepted as a law enforcement.
Correct. Yep.
And
criminal justice and all that in college. Yeah.
Criminal justice degree in college, and got accepted get a position as a police officer. Mm-hmm. And then several people in the family had a conversation with him, Ty included, had a conversation with him, and so Matt calls me one day and says, "Hey, do you think I can do insurance?" Mm. And this is he's got to let the police department know.
Was he asking as in, do you think I could do it?
Correct. Mm. Do I think he could do it? And obviously, I told him absolutely. I said, a lot of hard work, nothing's been given to you. You've got to earn it. But I think you've got the tools to do it, and be very good at it. But you got to have the passion for it, just like you have for law. He had a passion for law enforcement for that, and so he did it. And he's obviously, him and Ty both are doing tremendous.
Yeah,
and then the funny one is your youngest sister, Casey.
True.
Casey was one that says, "Hey, I'll never ever be in the insurance business. I am not doing it." And
the rest of the family's doing it. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, and so she's not going to do it. And so I talked to her a couple of times, and she was very adamant, "I'm not doing it." So one day I get a phone call from her. It was kind of, and we talk all the time, obviously, but she get a phone call and she says, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And she says, "What about this insurance thing?" And I'm like, "What did you say?" Because I was shocked to hear it. I just was shocked. And so she was going to do it from Kansas City remote, and I knew it'd be a little more difficult for her because she was going to be remote.
Yep.
And but she's come in and her first year, and I've never seen her do it. She does a Medicare seminar every single month. I've never seen her do a seminar, and she's never watched me do a seminar.
Wow.
That's how busy both our schedules have been.
That's crazy.
I just haven't seen her do one, and she's never seen me do one. Hunter Powell, which is one of our strategic partners there in Kansas City, did her first seminar for her for lunch, and then Casey did the the evening one by herself. And I remember Casey telling me that I did not make eye contact with the audience whatsoever.
Oh, no.
She said all I did was I turned my head to the slide and I read the slide. I did not want to make eye contact because I did not want them asking me any questions. And now she's fun and games with them and everything else.
That's
crazy. But she threw herself in the fire to learn.
True.
Because she said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to learn. I want to throw myself in the fire. But her first year she made, it was a funny story. You made $115,000.
117.
117,000. She made 115,000 her first year. Yeah. So I know you beat her by $2,000.
Yeah, which is funny.
And then last year she made 306,000 in her second year,
which I did not do in my second year.
Yeah,
she's tearing it up.
And then the third year, this year, she's on pace to make over 500,000.
Incredible.
And which is just it's
crazy for first full 36 months. First 3 years. It's remarkable.
But the biggest thing I can tell people is if they have children possibly looking at it, just tell them all about it and let it be their decision, because when it's their decision, that's when it
needs to be.
It's got to be their decision. It can't be something they were forced into. It can't be something they were given. And I'd encourage you to start them out in personal production. Mm-hmm. And they need to learn how to sell. They need to learn how to the products, the carriers. They need to learn the presentations. They need to learn how to sell, because they need because I don't care if there's nepotism or not. Nepotism's always perceived.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And we had that with you. The year you hit Chairman's Council with Mutual, it was nepotism that but I never gave you a single case. I never did. You hustled, and but it doesn't matter when you're the son of the GM, that
was a big driving factor too.
Yeah, that was a big.
I'm not gonna lie.
And I think that was one of the reasons that you wanted to have your own path too in this industry, because you didn't want to follow in Dad's footsteps, and I love that. I love it.
It's a very unique path, but still in the space, which is cool.
Yeah.
It's been good. Yeah, it's been special.
But it's got to be there.
100%.
It's because that's when it's got to be that fire and that desire and that burning desire that they wanted. So
yeah, you just like when you're training and mentoring people in this business, you cannot want it more for them than they want it for themselves. Same thing for getting into it. You just can't. And if anything, I mean, I almost talk people out of it.
Absolutely.
Just see if they really want to do it or not. And you always say like, man, it's gonna be really hard. It's gonna take a lot of work, But can you do well? Absolutely.
Absolutely,
if,
you can.
If you do those things.
Yeah, but I'd encourage personal production first, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree with that too. What were you mentioned earlier some principles that you had learned over the years? What are some things that stand out that would help agents and agencies?
Well, I just had a great mentor, in Milton Brock, and I absolutely love that guy, and just one of my favorite people in the entire world. And so Milton would always say little things that I never forgot, just kind of like Carlos Boozer saying, or Kobe Bryant saying, I got goals to Carlos Boozer. That's something I'll never forget as long as I live.
It's part of our 88% speech, by the way.
Yeah. Incredible.
Boozer. Yeah. Incredible. So you should look that up, guys.
Carlos Boozer, best speaker 8%'s ever had, in my opinion. I absolutely love the guy. Love the guy. I mean, just could not.
Yeah. Bring him back next year.
Yeah. Cool. I loved him. And, so, but one of the things is Milton he said a lot of things. And, one of the things Milton said was, he said, Brian, this was in 1997. He said, Brian, if you take care of the culture, you'll never have to worry about anything else. Mm. And I said, what do you mean by that? Because I was always asking him questions, because he was always saying stuff that, that just meant so much, Yeah. And he was a man of few words, but when he spoke, you listen, I did anyway. And, but he said, if you take care of the culture, you never have to worry about anything else. And he said, you never have to worry about money. You never have to worry about production. You never have to worry about recruiting. Mm. People will flock to you if you have the culture that they're looking for. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, culture is a place to where people can thrive, not survive. A culture is a place where people feel that they're safe. They're not attacked all the time. A culture is it's a positive place, not a negative place. A culture is where they have the tools, the resources, the training, the support, the carriers, the products, the compensation, in order to excel beyond their wildest imaginations. And he gave a lot better answer than I'm giving now. He was just he's just better than I was. He's incredible. And So he said stuff like that. And one thing that you kind of said earlier, he said, because early in my career, I thought I could make anybody successful. I just did. I thought if they're breathing, I can make them successful.
Boom. I
just thought that all I got to do is have them breathing. And I know it sounds silly, but I was that confident in myself. And so I remember the day he came to me and he said, Brian, he said, you cannot make everyone successful. He said, no. When their career is more important to you than it is to them, the horse is dead, dismount. And I've never forgotten that. But when, he just said that their career could never be more important to you than it is to them. And he said, if they don't have that fire in their belly for their career, he said, you can have the fire in your belly for them all day long. It's not going to move the needle. So
true. And
there's so many other things he said, but principles and, he always talked about just always do the right thing in every situation, regardless of the circumstances. And he said, I don't care if doing the right thing costs you money, do the right thing. And just, I don't care, if you got to go back and apologize, you got to go back and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, admit fault, whatever. Just do the right thing in every situation. And one of my goals in life is to be able to leave this earth, whenever, the good Lord decides to take me home, and know without a shadow of a doubt, there's not a person that's living could ever say that Brian Askins did them wrong. So
it's cool. Super cool. Crazy difficult, but very, very cool and very impressive. You also mentioned too about things that you've learned, obviously early in your career, but also later. What are some you've learned probably, because you were building an agency before you started on the independent side of the business, and now Secure Insurance Group, and then it became Impact Legacy Group, and now it's Lasting Mark.
Yeah,
is company. What are some things that you've learned over the last, could be the last 35 years, but about and maybe more the last 11 and a half, but about building an agency from scratch?
One of the things is that you have to surround yourself with great people. No one's ever built something alone. Me or anyone else has never, and I've been a part of building, I've been the head of a couple of organizations that's really did well, did very, very, very well. And, but it's truly about, the people you surround yourself with. And it's also setting people up to win. And it goes kind of like back to that culture, thing, making sure that they understand that the culture that you have, that they have, that they're a part of, they feel good about winning, and they feel good about what they're part of. The biggest mistake that is, let me say this for John, I'll tell you the biggest mistake, but one of the things is that people have to trust their leaders. If you've ever given somebody a reason not to trust you, you've got to fix that, or that relationship's over. And people can be successful without great culture, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah,
it won't last forever. It will fall. It will fall, and they're constantly having to rebuild it because of the bad culture. And but when you have great culture, you're always on a trajectory, a trajectory going north. But when you have bad culture, you're like on a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And but one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they think they're dictators, and instead of, these people, they have a choice where they do their business. Independent agents have a choice where they do their business. Right. You have to earn every dollar of override that you receive. Every dollar of override I want to earn. I don't want anything given to me. And so to where, listening to your staff, listening to the other people on your team, listening to making sure everybody's voices are heard,
Yeah.
to where everybody feels a part of it. And so what I love about Lasting Mark is any of our strategic partners can call me, or any of our agents can call me tomorrow and give me their opinion on something, and I'm going to listen. We may not always make the change you're looking for,
Sure.
but if we don't, they're going to know why. It's all about the communication. And so in this industry, people get to a certain level and they get arrogant, they get cocky, they get,
Yeah, you're right. Unfortunately.
and they just think that it's their way or the highway, and it shouldn't be that way,
Yeah.
and you've got, people have to have a voice.
Amen.
So
Such an important piece. Yeah. I love that. Well, you have had such an impact on my life and career, marriage, et cetera. Like you're someone that, if you don't want somebody to shoot you straight, don't ask you a question. Like, if you're going to be honest, and you're going to say it in a very respectful way, but you're going to say it, just to who you are and how you were raised and who you've become, right? Which is cool. Our relationship just continues to grow over the years. It's amazing where now we get to work across the hall from each other.
Yeah.
Lasting Mark's, we're on the third floor of the Frisco building in Springfield, Missouri at this point. Lasting Mark has about 18,000 square feet across the hall.
18.3, yeah.
CA Kaboom 8% has about 6,500 right across the hall. And yeah, it's cool. It's been a lot of fun to get to be an agent working with you for forever, but also be able to, build something alongside of what you're doing too. So it's really, really been special.
Hey, let me, I want to say one more thing.
Please.
I just thought about this because this is so important, is my wife and I, Patty, your mom, we'll be married 36 years, September 1st.
That's awesome.
And so one of the things that's so important in success in marriage, but also having a successful family, is, your mom and I have not always agreed on everything, but y'all never saw that.
Yeah.
We disagree with each other behind closed doors. And so like when I was wrong, she would wait till we got behind closed doors and tell me I was wrong. And when she's been wrong, I wait till we get behind closed doors and I tell her she's wrong. Now, so the parents have to be on the same page. When the parents are on different pages, that's when the kids, they're confused.
True.
They're very, very, very confused. So for the health of the children, for relationship purposes, have healthy relationships, the parents have to always, always, always be on the same page. And so if I could encourage any of the young parents out there, the key to any relationship, especially marriage, any business relationship, any marriage relationship, any relationship whatsoever, friendships, anything, it's all about communication. And so one of the things is that, and I've not always done the best at this. I try to work hard at this. I'm still working on this, and because none of us are perfect. We all make a lot of mistakes.
True.
Is a lot of times, you want to make sure, like as a great leader, you've got to put yourself in the agent's shoes. And so that, I was asked a question the other day, and this is probably about 6 weeks ago. I was asked a question, how have you been such a really, and they used the word great leader. I think I've been a pretty good leader, maybe not great, but I've been pretty good.
No doubt.
And so they asked me that question. And the very first thing that came to my mind, I said, which is, I always put myself in the agent's shoes when I'm dealing with the situation, and always, because I'm an agent at heart. I was an agent for over 7.5 years. And then I became an agent again for another 7.5 years later in my career. So about 15 years I've been in production, and I love production. Love it, love it, love it.
True.
And, but I think it's with the communication with spouses, communication with business partners, communications with your agents. It's all about communication. If you have great communication, you have a chance to build something truly, truly, truly special, something that will stand the test of time.
It's awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you for being back on the Power Player podcast. Also, you have you've even started getting a little more involved in social. So if they want to go follow what you're doing on Facebook or Instagram, Brian Askins, Instagram, brian.askins. And it's been awesome to have you back. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
And thank you for being on the Power Player podcast and for all you've done for Lauren and I.
Thank you. Well, I love you very much and appreciate
You
it.
too, buddy. Appreciate you so much, okay? And we love and appreciate you guys too for listening and watching. Let me know in comments below, what was your favorite part of, what was the biggest nugget or impact or takeaway for you from this podcast today? To all the fathers out there, you have a chance to impact someone's life in an incredible way like my father has for me. And so make sure that you do just that. Thanks for hanging with us. Thanks for listening to the Power Player Podcast. Have an amazing weekend, amazing Father's Day. We will see you on the next one.